Let's see if I can find another analogy. If you attach electrodes to someone and provide current, are you electrocuting that person if the person does not die?
And you're saying that if you send an electric current through their body that doesn't kill them, you are simulating the electrocution and not really electrocuting them?
I would say you're definitely not really electrocuting them.
We called Los Angeles Times national editor Scott Kraft for a second opinion.
I think I'd be reluctant to call it drowning torture just because torture has become a politically charged word. It's actually at the very center of why we're even writing about it.
Your paper has chosen to use the term Armenian genocide, while Congress is still debating whether to define it as genocide. Isn't that the same issue? The definition is the story, and you've chosen a position.
10 years ago or so, the paper decided as a matter of style to do this. I think it puts us in an awkward position. The people who did this, I think, were deciding that, like Holocaust, it's one of those labels that you can use. But I agree with you entirely that it's very awkward, I think, to have to write about the whole term of genocide is the reason that there's a debate over this resolution with all the implications that we've written about. And by the way, and we've said this in the stories, the paper, as a matter of style, has decided to call it genocide.
So, the guardians of the Los Angeles Times style book were able to render a judgment on the Armenian genocide, but not on waterboarding. Randy Weissman of the Chicago Tribune says that really, news pages are no place to take a stand. Leave that to the columnists.
What my personal opinion is, and what the media in general may believe, are really not relevant. Individuals representing news outlets should not be making judgments.
To some degree, because it's the job of the news media to accurately and completely inform their readership, viewers, listeners, whatever, by sidestepping a policy issue, you are potentially not serving your audience.
I agree with you, and I think that at some point, most, if not all, media outlets will make a decision. When will that happen? I wish I had a good answer for you. Clearly, it is a matter of some news outlet sitting down and saying, I believe that waterboarding is torture, and we're going to call it torture from now on. Someone needs to make that choice. The Tribune has chosen not to make that choice at this point. Will we at some point? We may not.
But isn't this news we could use? And wouldn't some good old-fashioned shoe leather get the job done? How about facts? In 1947, the U.S. sentenced the Japanese officer to 15 years hard labor for waterboarding an American civilian. The Geneva Conventions, the War Crimes Act, and the Detainee Treatment Act either suggest or explicitly state that waterboarding is torture. The 2006 Military Commissions Act says it is not. That last law seems to supersede the others. So, NPR calls waterboarding a, quote, controversial interrogation technique. The New York Times calls it simulated drowning. And on MSNBC, Time Magazine's Anna Marie Cox used waterboarding as a metaphor for the congressional grilling of Alberto Gonzales last August.
I mean, the last time he went in front of Congress, I felt sorry for him. It was like it was legislative waterboarding. You know, they just kept going after him and kept going after him.
Malcolm, does it make you cringe when you hear torture and waterboarding used as a metaphor?
The media gladly appears to accept any terminology that comes out, and then they make light of it. And I really long for a time when the media would take matters of serious national security interest seriously. And this is one. Again, you know, I characterize it less than the question of the technique, but then is our moral fabric tearing in this nation? And I think the media is coming across with scissors when they use phrases like that.
MSNBC's Morning Joe show.
And as you mentioned, Joe, it's not a new phenomenon. It's being pinned on President Bush, but
right.
This has been part of interrogation for years and years and years.
Well,
again, not defending it. That's just a fact.
No, but I mean, they did it at your fraternity on Hell Night.
They did.
Right? And
unfortunately, they did, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, pay no attention. It's just the media running with scissors again.
Thanks for listening to this week's On the Media podcast, a free service of WNYC Radio. Find out where On the Media is playing in your area and support your local public radio station by going to onthemedia.org. You can support this podcast